So I'm Jackson, 29 years old, based in North London. I founded Black Eats London just over 2 years ago now. I come from an IT and business background. I worked in corporate in the city for 8 or 9 years, working on very large corporate accounts such as, IKEA, Jaguar Land Rover, various different charities from WWF, UNICEF, British Heart Foundation, so on and so forth. So I've worked across various different sectors, both in, I guess, hospitality, automotive, travel, so on and so forth, retail as well. So quite a varied kind of background. And kind of 2 years ago, I wanted to kind of bring those skills that I kind of learned and kind of got the experience through working in corporate and bring that to kind of Black hospitality. It was clearly a space that was underrepresented. There was an article wrote by Vice, and that kind of looked at a period of 2019 to 2020, and there was only one Black-owned restaurant that was featured in the whole of that calendar year. So for me, was a clear sign that someone needed to do something. And I wasn't willing to wait for someone else to do that. And I thought, let me just do that work because, clearly nobody else is doing it. Government funded initiative where I think it was you spend up to £30 and the government would basically subsidize 50% of the cost of the meal. So at that point, everyone was kind of, emerging from COVID and kind of going back outside again. And, some people were a bit anxious to go outside. Some people weren't ready. Some people, were concerned for health reasons and so on and so forth. And there was kind of quite a big push to support locals, support small businesses, to stop shopping from the likes of Amazon and all of these massive companies that didn't really need the money like smaller businesses did, because obviously lack of working and not being able to kind of operate normally. So at that point, I was kind of like, okay, it's great supporting small local. I was already doing that. But it was kind of then about, okay, how do we support Black-owned businesses as well? And I think the clear thing that was missing for me is the education or the knowledge on where these Black-owned restaurants are, who they are, how we can support them. That was something that wasn't really readily available in terms of that information to actually identify them. So that's the kind of gap that I wanted to fill, because there was, various blog posts. There was like, here's 10 Black restaurants to support in London, those kind of posts. But often when you look at this post of 10, there'll be 6 that are valid. 2 of them are not Black-owned. 2 of them maybe are delivery-only services, or they're no longer in business, or so on and so forth. So the data that was out there was just really poor. And what I wanted to do is kind of create a free resource for people to access, and it be actually user-friendly and easy to use, and a sustainable tool that is user-friendly and that is able to be used on all different mobile devices, people of all different age groups, and making it an inclusive tool as well by making sure that people such as, pescatarians, people who want halal food, people who want vegan food, people who want vegetarian food, we've done the work to kind of dig through all of these menus to actually find out whether that is suitable for them or not.
I feel like you have really glossed over how you actually got started. You've made it kind of be like, well, I saw there was an issue and I really wanted to do something to resolve that issue, that problem, that challenge, something that I care about, something that the community needs, something that hospitality sector even needs. That you kind of sort of made out there was super easy, but it couldn't have been as easy as what you're saying, Jackson. Like,
yeah.
Were there any particular challenges that you came up across, or any particular support that came along that you really needed that helped you to really push what you're doing through and get to where you are now?
Yeah, so I guess like in order to just start in the first place, like I said, this information wasn't out there already. So in terms of these blog posts that were here, there and everywhere, by going through like all of these and collating a unique list of restaurants, that would probably only get me to about 30 restaurants across the whole of London. So obviously when I launched at having 100, I somehow needed to obviously expand that category to make sure that, okay, I'm not saying to someone who lives in South London, hey, travel all the way to like Central London, or travel to East London, or travel to West London. So I wanted to make sure that what I put out there was, accessible for everyone. So there was a lot of research that I had to do to actually identify these restaurants, going from literally being out in the open and seeing a Caribbean restaurant and going on Companies House and looking at the ownership and seeing who owned this restaurant, to going through Instagram, Facebook, even Google Maps, looking at the street view, various different ways of kind of finding these restaurants to kind of build up this kind of directory. So that was kind of quite a big challenge to find them, first of all, because when you're a business that is brand new, doesn't have a reputation, not necessarily taken seriously, if you want to say that, a lot of businesses or resources or whichever don't really want to come forward with this information. So sometimes you have to kind of take this information from the resources that are already out there rather than expecting to get that firsthand. So
oh, that's interesting. Why might there have been resistance or concern about kind of giving you that information? I'm quite surprised to hear that. Can you share a bit more about
that? I think it's a difficult one. I think, like, for example, you probably get likewise tens or hundreds of emails each day. And it's sometimes a priority of which ones to respond to. So when you look at something which is unheard of or unknown and doesn't really have a presence yet, maybe that one, takes a back burner compared to something that already has a name. So I think that's kind of it. And obviously with time and kind of consistency, that's obviously changed now, where I don't need to do what I was doing in terms of the outreach, but more of inbound now, where people know the name, they recognize it, they know how big the platform is, and they want to be a part of it. So I think it was a shift in how I approached it, which was more of a go to the source approach, and more of now of, okay, find out what we can and try and kind of fill in the gaps otherwise. So yeah, it's I guess in the approach. Like right at the beginning, I was doing this at the same time as working a 9-to-5 corporate. So obviously it was a balance of time and availability to actually do this. So a lot of the time when I was working on this, I was, finishing the 9-to-5, maybe getting some dinner, and then working straight onto this from, 6 p.m. until midnight or 2 a.m., whatever time it was, to actually get to a level where I could launch it. And then with time and obviously being able to work on paid projects and, put funding in from my 9-to-5 as well, to be able to bring people on board, those are the kind of things I had to do or sacrifices I had to make to actually make it work. So at the present, like now I have like other team members that I bring on board for different projects, whether that's in the event space, whether it's in a campaign space, working with a range of different Black creatives to actually make it happen. So I think what's slightly different about my business to a lot of others is this is not a singular business in terms of success. This is success in terms of the community. So it's not just about, my page getting likes or people following or my company being successful financially, but it's more about all of the businesses which are part of the community: restaurants, cafes, bars, takeaways, so on and so forth, street food spots. That is where the success is, and that's the measurement of success. So it's not really a case of looking at me, myself, and saying, is this successful? It's more about the work that I do and the impact that has, and that's the real measurement for success for me. In terms of being able to galvanize people, I guess this is more of a community effort. So in terms of where we started with 0 Instagram followers, literally brand new account. It wasn't a personal account or an existing account, literally from scratch. Of course, a few friends and family followed the account at the beginning, people reposting, sharing, but really how we kind of galvanized and grew and made a presence for ourselves is by using social media to our benefit. I think probably you guys on the call know that Instagram is typically kind of that demographic around like 25 to 35. And you're looking on TikTok, you're looking below that. If you're looking on websites, you're looking above that. So I think it was kind of key for us to understand our audience and kind of speak to them in a way that they would understand. So to be able to actually do that, all of the information that we're putting out on Instagram is already on our website. So it's already there. It's nothing new. We're just recycling this information to different kind of formats. So right at the beginning, we had the directory on the website where you can see 100 restaurants all at once. Great. You can click on them, you can scroll through, so on and so forth. But what we started to do is essentially take bite-sized chunks out of the website and share them on social media. So for example, we had one post where we were looking at outdoor dining spots. So back in, I think it was late 2021, we were only allowed to dine outside with up to 6 people from your household, I think it was at one point. And so there was kind of this additional complexity on supporting Black-owned businesses now, because the question is, okay, this is a Black-owned business, but can I even eat there? Do they have an outdoor dining area? All of these things. So just in order to actually execute that, this was something that I had to check their websites of the restaurants, look at Google Street Views, etc. And then when I posted that on Instagram, this was information that nobody else had. So instantly the audience were looking at this information saying, oh my God, this is just what I need. Boris has just told us we can go outside and eat at restaurants, and now there's a guide of 50 Black-owned restaurants with outdoor dining. That post itself had, I think it was over 28,000 likes, 28,000 saves as well. And a key measurement for me, which isn't available, well, it's still available on Instagram as well. You can see shares as well, where you could see people could DM it to other people as well, which that metric is no longer available, but the saves is really what is intent from me. So when I see that someone saved a post, it means they're either going to come back or they're going to look at this in the future and take an action from it. And that's essentially how we grew our audience and grew our impact. It's through social media and providing people with bite-sized tools to actually go out there and action and essentially support Black-owned businesses.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that information with us. I wanted to ask quickly, were you, and feel free not to answer this because this is like we're going to edit, cut, chop, repurpose as you're just explaining this conversation anyway. But with regards to finances and resources that way, did you get funding? Did you have support from externally? Did you use your own savings? Did you have a community fundraising activity? I think people would be interested to know, because there's definitely a difference with regards to financial access for, ethnic minorities, Black people in particular. So I'd like to know how you kind of got started.
Yeah, so it's 100% self-financed. So at the time I was working as a director in a marketing agency. So majority of that, and when we were in lockdown, obviously people weren't really spending that much money. So I was able to obviously fund myself during that process until the business became a viable business where I could obviously pay myself from it. So it was 100% self-funded. We got one grant so far, that was from Bumble. That was back in the winter last year, and that was providing safe spaces for Black dating, which is through our Black-owned Hackney event.
That's okay. Thank you for sharing that. That's fab. I think it's really important to highlight the type of resources that are available.
So for me, it was the case of just being able to do something that was legal at the time. So when we were coming out of lockdown in 2021, the only thing you could actually do was go to the supermarket, exercise, or go to a market essentially, and markets were considered to be essential shopping. So when I launched the event, being an outdoor food market, that was considered a essential shopping. So that was a real reason why I started it. It was something that necessarily wasn't going to be a long-term thing, but more of a thing of, it's lockdown, how do we keep supporting these businesses while people can actually fully open their doors? That was the real reason of creating an outdoor food market, is because of the legality of it. And it was only really the continued support and footfall of the event that is why the event is still going on.
You are definitely somebody, as I'm getting to learn a bit more about you and kind of like the way you operate, only in the past 10 minutes also been chatting with you, is that you definitely know how to use opportunities to the best advantage. So you see, right, okay, this could be a block, this could be a challenge. How can I turn this to advantage or springboard off it? And that does take definitely a certain amount of skill, a certain amount of vision, fearlessness, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's cool. Nice work. Nice work.
I guess just to add to that, like, I have zero events background. Like, before doing the events in Hackney, I had no idea about running events. I had no idea about the logistical side of things, from, power to, gas safety, food safety, environmental health checks, electrical appliance testing, all of these things that you learn along the way through events. I had no idea about all of this stuff. I didn't even have a trader network to actually pull traders together to do the event, all of these things. So that's something that I've kind of built across the past kind of year and a half, to actually be able to execute these events on a 2-week basis, which not many people are actually able to do. If you really look out there, and if you look at the footfall that we get, which is averaging around 9,000 people a weekend, some festivals struggle to get that. So that in itself, I will say, it's the biggest pop-up event in London right now. You move from, I guess, the diversity of having a Black-owned restaurant directory and being the first and only to do that in the UK, that's kind of on the diversity side. But in terms of the inclusive side, I think this is kind of how we develop the platform intentionally, which is to make it something that was, accessible for everyone. So it's not just about, Black food as such, but you're also looking at, okay, halal, vegan, vegetarian. We even have filters on the website for outdoor seating, which obviously was more beneficial during COVID times. But we also have stuff such as, wheelchair access, stuff like that. So all of these filters are available on the website. So no matter who you are, what your kind of mobility is, what your dietary requirements are, all of these different things are kind of catered for. And the space that we create through the Black-owned Hackney events is likewise, we have people from all different backgrounds, races, genders, orientations, because of the space that we've created. So it's more of a space that is created within, and because people feel welcome when they come into the space, they come back into the space. So it's not a case of saying, yes, we're diverse, yes, we're inclusive. People turn up and they're just like, what? It's more of a case of the vibe and the ecosystem that we've created is welcoming of people. So that's why people of all different communities come to our events on a repeat basis. I think like the main thing was, or the reason why I initially did it, is because they don't get spotlighted by the mainstream media. So if you look at, your typical outlets, I don't want to call names, but if you look at the typical outlets, whether that's online media, printed media, food media, hospitality media, it's only really since we've started to push these businesses where they've actually followed and actually started to now spotlight these businesses. So whether they give us the credit for actually, putting them onto these businesses, shining the light on these businesses initially, for them to then, pick up from what we've actually done after that, that's fine. But we can clearly see we've actually had a massive impact on Black hospitality. We are the #1 leading in Black hospitality. If you talk about Black-owned restaurants, Black Eats comes up first of all. Like, that's just how it is. But I think in terms of like pushing that culture forward and the challenges of that, I think, there's various different aspects from, social economic stuff, from how Caribbean or West African food is viewed in the UK. If you look at the Michelin star and how many Black-owned Michelin star restaurants are there, that's problematic in itself. So the whole structure of hospitality isn't where it should be. And there's, I guess, too many points to kind of go through in terms of what the real problem is. I think there's top to bottom issues within it. I don't think I'm here to solve all of them, but I'm here to do something. So with our events, we intentionally look to hire Black creatives, first of all. So when you look at our events, you'll see that every single DJ, every single photographer, every single videographer, all of the collectors we bring in to run our night events, they're all Black. Second of all, I try to bring as many women into that as well. So looking at, female DJs, female photographers, all of those things, and showing that, look, women can do this just as well as men, if not better, why not? So it's very intentional what we do. It's not by chance, it's not by luck or fate. This is intent and how we actually do things. It takes more effort, it takes more time. We have to invest more into people and obviously make sure that people are paid correctly as well. So it's not just gonna, all align with the stars just by, crossing your fingers. It's stuff you actually have to put the effort into, the time. And naturally, once you create that inclusive community, people want to be a part of that and want to join that. I think in food is very, very important. If you look at the number of Black chefs you may have known where you were growing up, you may say Ainsley Harriott, and you may struggle to say any other names beyond that. So I think that's just a reality of what it was like when myself was growing up. Maybe when you were growing up, maybe slightly different. But for me, I didn't really see many people like me on television. In terms of what people may say is like a good restaurant or popular restaurants or top restaurants in London as well, you'd never see Black-owned restaurants kind of put in that spotlight. So I think that's something that is changing through generations. I think that how we portray Black food now and the way how we're presenting Black food is kind of beyond the takeaways, and which is why we kind of focus so much on restaurants, is so that we can kind of look at, our competitors and show that we're actually able to compete with them, and actually provide spaces that are similar, or if not even better than what they're providing, rather than being kind of a second best or a second option. In terms of being a leader, even through my corporate role and how I would kind of bring members of my team into that as well, I think that's something that's kind of followed me. And I think a leader is not just about telling people what to do or anything like that. I think it's more of being the example. And, you know, same with like Instagram, I knew that people weren't going to go to these restaurants without me going there first of all and saying, look, this is really good for date night, this is really good for family, this is really good for friends. So I think it's more about taking that first step, and people will follow you to join that on that journey. And I think it's also about the consistency as well. I've run over 40 events now in Hackney. It wasn't a, you know, one hit kind of everything was perfect from the start. I think when you're a leader, you have to take accountability, take ownership. If something doesn't go wrong, maybe it's not completely your fault, but, you know, sometimes take it on the chin and, you know, take the stress, take the what you need to on the day, and look how you can kind of advance, enhance, overcome, do better, be better. And I think once you show these kind of qualities and people can see the intent of what you're trying to achieve, people will naturally want to be a part of that. And I think that's where we've kind of got to now, is where we are kind of the benchmark or the kind of leader in the kind of Black hospitality space. And it's a no-brainer for people to want to be a part of that. Black History Month as a month, I guess historically it's kind of focused on the historical side, obviously Black History Month, but I think history is also being made now, and in the present. So I think for Black History Month, for me, it's not only about the steps that have been and the foundation that has been laid for us, but it's about what we do with that foundation and what we do with what kind of our ancestors and parents and grandparents have actually done through Windrush generations and so on and so forth, and how they pass the baton to us and what we then do with it. So for me, Black History Month is every month for me. I do events all year round. Black East London is open 365, 12 months, you know, always open. It's not just October for me. So Black History Month is just another month in the calendar for me. And yeah, it's just a month for us to amplify what we're doing, with more of a spotlight, I would say, rather than something is not going to happen the other 11 months of the year.
Of course. What would you say to companies or organizations that are struggling to celebrate or mark or acknowledge Black History Month in a meaningful way? Because obviously for us, for you, for me, you know, this isn't just a month, this is something that should be ongoing throughout the year. But organizations obviously choose the time like October to focus on this, but say they don't really know what ways they can focus on this. And I can already see the work that you're doing, the voices that you're amplifying, the companies that you're highlighting. Is this not something perhaps that organizations could also do themselves?
Yeah, I mean,
not even a question. I feel like I've just made a statement, but I'd like to know what you think.
I think the first step for a lot of these companies, in my opinion, is why can't you done this in September? Why can't you do this in November? That's the first question. And these conversations and these activations and events and so on and so forth that are typically run in October, why can't they be run in January? Why can't they be run in April? That's the real question. And once you ask yourself that question, you'll be like, oh, maybe they can. And I think that's the real key thing, is like not just doing it next month or this month or whichever month it is, but realizing this is something that can happen throughout the whole year. Diversifying your supply chain, diversifying the people in your organization, diversifying the type of events you run as an organization, not just going to the pub after work, all of these different things. The culture within the company, that's something that is, I guess, quite problematic a lot of the time. And I think that's why, you know, having a Black History Month for a lot of companies is a almost like a checkbox activation. I see it a lot of the time. Obviously, my inbox at the moment businesses that I've never heard of, businesses that I don't hear from, businesses that will want to work with us next month and not in November and onwards. I think that's really the key thing. It's like, be authentic in what you're doing. That's like probably number one thing. And yeah, if you truly care, then realize that there's 12 months in a year. That's what I would say. I'm into my second year of running this company, going into the third year, and also going into the, I guess, second or third year as well of events. So the events for me is probably a key part of what we do now. It wasn't initially. Obviously, I started it was a directory of restaurants, but the events element is very key in the way of actually bringing people together, creating a safe space, and creating a space that is, providing a stepping stone for a lot of these businesses to move from, whether it's a dark kitchen, whether it's a home business, whether it's a lockdown idea, whether it's just a concept, providing that place for people to actually kind of go on and do better things. Ultimately, being in a market in Hackney is not the kind of end of the road, like it's a stepping stone, but being able to provide that space and also provide that space outside of Hackney as well. So we do a lot of festivals now, we do corporate events and so on and so forth. So it's really about providing people with opportunities that they haven't had before. We did a pop-up through August at Somerset House, all through Monday to Sunday, the whole month. And that was the first time in Somerset House history that they ever had a barbecue on Somerset House. So something as like ridiculous as that is just showing that we're actually breaking barriers and making history through what we're doing. And the more of that we can do, the better.